I have a lot of notes. Like it takes me a while to make these because I take a lot of notes. Hi everybody, I'm Nightingale, and on this channel we do makeup unboxings, get ready with me's like we're doing today, gaming content, my pets show up, and just generally all kinds of stuff. June is important for two reasons. The first, for me, at least the first that I knew about, was my birthday, because I'm born in June. That video will air next Wednesday, on my actual birthday. And then the other thing that is super important about June is Flag Day. No, Flag Day is very important, but that's a whole different thing. It's Pride Month. And I wanted to do a series every Monday on important things relating to or about the LGBTQ community or Pride or etc. etc. I realize it's Tuesday, this weekend completely got away from me, as is wont to happen in my crazy life. But we are doing that today, and in the Get Ready with, in the Get Ready With Me today, we are talking about the event that started Pride, that is the birthplace of, or the birth event of Pride, and that is the Stonewall Riots. If you've never heard of the Stonewall Riots, don't worry. Other than a passing mention in one of my college history books, I really hadn't either until I started researching. Because they're not talked about a lot. And I think they should be talked about more, and I think as we continue on, they will be. So let's talk about them, eh? It's not that homosexuals just suddenly showed up sometime in the 60s or 70s. Homosexuality and transgenderism has been around pretty much forever. And that's a whole topic we could go into, and it's one that I'm considering for this month, is authors, actresses, and other historical figures you didn't know were part of the LGBTQIA community. Because there are a lot of them. And if you have studied the arts at all, you know that. I mean, Shakespeare, not half, but a lot of his sonnets are written to a young man, his love poems. And several of his plays contain both lesbian and gay characters. But today, we're talking about the Stonewall Riots. And like I said, it didn't just appear out of nowhere. Actually, mainstream society had kind of always known that homosexuality was a thing. However, they didn't really care as long as they kept it out of polite society, basically. And even that was like, there was a time and a place for it, you know, and there was a certain amount of, that was acceptable, depending on who you were and what your job was. And yeah. So it wasn't even like it was completely ignored. It was just tolerated in certain ways. But you had to stay in those lanes, you know, and you needed to not actively display any affection or any actual acts of homosexuality. Like, it was fine if you were a little different. And we all knew what you did in the privacy of your own home, but we didn't because it was the privacy of your own home. And as long as you kept it to that and you didn't actually bother society with it, they tended to ignore it. But that kind of started changing in the 20th century. Somewhere along the lines, like, mainstream society decided, and it was sometime in the 1800s, probably during the Reformation, or the Second Reformation, I don't know. But anyways, at some point, society decided that they cared what went on behind closed doors. They hadn't cared for centuries, but now they cared. And then, again, they cared what went on in public for centuries, but they kind of turned, up until the 1800s, they turned a blind eye to what you did away from the public, as long as you kept it quiet. That changed, and suddenly it was a big deal, and there was more and more laws and regulations and punishment if you were gay, especially in America. Gay, lesbian, transgender, drag queen, any variety of that. They didn't want it to exist. And that drove the community deeper and deeper into secrecy. And there came to be these like refuges, and they usually took the form of a bar. And it was a bar that's like, you only went to it. It was one of those if you know things, and if you don't know, you don't go to that bar. And if a stranger walked into the bar, they weren't one of the crowd, you know, they didn't fit the image of the bar. They were very quickly invited to leave, or given negative pressure, or I mean, just trust me, there's ways people can encourage someone to leave. Like they were given bad service, bad drinks, if they were served at all, things like that. They kept the door, you know, they kept their secrets. Well, in New York City in 1969, most of these bars were owned by the mafia. Because the mafia knew if they created these havens, they could overcharge as much as they wanted for drinks, and the homosexuals would still come because the mafia could pay off the police and keep the police from raiding them, and it would basically be a safe place for them. And it was a, you know, it was a relationship that worked. Stonewell Inn was one of those bars, and it was a gay bar, but it was operated by the mafia, and for the most part, the police left it alone. Now, it did get raided from time to time because they had to, but typically the mafia was warned and they were able to, you know, minimize the damage. You know, warn their best patrons, be like, hey, don't come by tonight, blah, blah, blah. And just generally keep things copacetic. On the morning, early morning at like 1 or 2 a.m. of June 28th, 1969, the police conducted an actual raid where they did not warn the mafia ahead of time on the Stonewell Inn. They sent actually 2 men and 2 women into the Stonewell Inn to act as undercover decoys. And once they had made visual observation of homosexual activities going on, people flirting with each other. I mean, it's not like there was an orgy going on. It was a bunch of drinks, and it was probably a drag queen entertaining, and people were flirting with the same gender instead of the opposite one. I mean, it wasn't crazy at all by today's standards, but by 1969 standards, it was a wild time in the West. Anyways, after they had made the observation of this, they called the morality squad, that's actually what it was called, which was standing by outside. They raided the place, basically rounded everybody up, made them stand in lines, and tried to figure out who was straight and who was gay and who was a man and who was a woman. Because this was a place where you could just be yourself. Dress how you want, be how you want. You had male to female trans, you had female to male trans, you had very butch lesbians, you had lipstick lesbians, you had very effeminate gays, you had very manly gays, you had the whole crowd here. Because there just wasn't that many places for them to hang out, so they all hung out there together, and so they lined everybody up. And usually what happened was, when they raided gay bars, what happened was they would have the lady police officers take anyone who looked female into the bathrooms to try to ascertain their gender. Pull their pants down and verify their gender, not ascertain, verify their gender by literally pulling their pants down and checking their genitalia. Yeah, that was a regular part of the police raids. Fun, huh? And then the men would go to, men's prison, and the women would go to women's prison, and life would be hunky-dory. Well, apparently this time, when they said, come on, if you look female, come with the ladies this way, people said no. They were tired. They were sick of it. They'd had enough. And they refused to go to the bathroom to be identified. So they refused to go to the bathroom, so the cops were like, okay, you know what? We're just going to check all of you then. And they just basically started, like, trying to figure out who do we need to arrest, who do we not need to arrest, what are we going to do, blah, 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 how do we handle this? And they were frisking people, and there's allegations that the cops were getting too friendly while frisking lesbians. I'm trying to figure out how I can say this without getting like a channel ding or something. But some of the people, they were like, okay, you can go. Some of the people they were arresting, it was a cluster, people. It was a cluster. And the people, when they released them, normally if you were in a bar that got raided by the cops and you were released, you went the heck home. Like you were grateful that you got out, and that was that. That's what the cops expected anyways. That's not what happened this time. Instead of heading home as people were released, they started gathering outside. It started out just a few people, but as people were gathering outside of this raided club, more and more people were like, what's going on? And the crowd started to grow. And by the time the cops were ready to start transporting the people they were actually going to arrest, and they had to wait for a while because there was some difficulty getting the transport there, because they also had to take all of the alcohol when they raided. And there was just issues getting the wagons there. But by the time it was ready, they were about ready to start transporting, there was over 100 people out there just watching all of this go down. And the cops got nervous because the crowd was not just complying the way they were supposed to. They were aggravated, and you could feel the tension. And at some point, someone made a comment that maybe the cops hadn't been paid off enough. And people responded to that saying, let's pay them now, and started chucking change at them. And like, a couple pieces of coins hitting you isn't a big deal. But imagine 100 people tossing pennies and nickels as hard as they can at your face and arms and everything. It was getting violent fast. So the cops backed in, like, some of the cop cars' tires got slashed, and like it kept getting more and more violent. So some of the cop cars took off, just like, vroom, I'm out. And some of the cops went back inside the Stonewell Inn and barricaded themselves and a few prisoners in there. And the crowd just kept growing and getting more and more violent, and they were actively fighting back, and the police were just like, what the hell at this point. There's a quote that one of the people involved said. They're like, it wasn't organized, nobody said, hey, let's fight back, we were just tired of it. And the cops were like, don't fight. And the guy can say the word because it's one of those, if you're part of the community, you can say it. If you're not, you're not. And I'm not. But I just found it hilarious that like one of the guys like, y'all, the cops just thought, don't fight. And we did. It's like, all right, yeah, you did. So this continued, and it was like violent, but nobody was seriously injured or killed. But they were throwing, like, they found a construction site, and they were throwing bricks and wood and just generally fighting. You know, it was like, we've taken this crap for too long, we're done. We're fighting back, man. And it was very spontaneous. According to people who were there, the first people to fight back were the street kids and the hustlers, and what that was the most outcast of the gay community. It was the very young, the people who had no money, nowhere to go, so they had to live on the street. They had to try to sell or trick or game or whatever to get any money to buy any food or anything. It was the ones out there turning tricks. I mean, let's be honest, we know what that means. They were the most outcast because they were the most obvious and they were the easiest to point out as being, after the street kids got started, sorry, I was trying to remember where I was. The next people to join were the women and trans men who were being held in the women's correctional facility just down the road. They were like, hey, they're fighting back, I'm all for it. And they got involved and they started, you know, attacking and fighting and joining in this violent, not uprising, but riot. It was basically a riot against the police and kicking and screaming and calling them names and blah, 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 and all that stuff. Nobody was killed, but it was definitely a riot. Like, there was some damage done, but mainly to the police vehicles. The cops were just, they called in the tactical force, the SWAT team, basically. And one of the SWAT team members said, as we got there, it was obvious the police were humiliated and just decimated and didn't know what to do in the face of all of this, I don't know what to call it even, in the face of all of this resistance from people they didn't think were capable of resisting. They thought basically were subhuman. So the tactical force came and dispersed everything. The next night, people kind of came back to see what happened. And because they knew stuff had gone down and they wanted to know more. So a whole bunch of people showed up at Stonewall and the riot continued. Only this time it was more organized and there were people speaking in the doorway of Stonewall, and it was more of a protest and less of a spontaneous, let's chuck our change at the cops and throw bricks and stuff at the cops. It was a lot more organized. Now, cops still came to break it up. There was still physical conflict and violence going on. But this happened for 3 more nights. So it went from June 28th to July 2nd of people just showing up at Stonewall and violently announcing, we've had enough. By the end of the Stonewall riots, these protests had spread to a lot of major cities on the East Coast. And like, there were spontaneous gatherings all across the East Coast in places like Chicago, LA, San Francisco. There was a lot of other places standing up and saying, you know what? This ain't right. So after July 2nd, the riot fizzled out, but the movement it started just kept gaining momentum. There were there was already a group that existed to advocate for homosexual rights, but after the Stonewall riots, the community kind of split. And the older part of the gay community was like, no, we don't want to do violence. We want non-violence. We want to show that we are the same as heterosexuals, so we deserve the same rights. And the younger generation was like, screw that. We're done being treated as less. We're going to take our rights. And so the movement kind of split. And the more active part of the movement is what we kind of developed into, where it's not just sit there and try to say, look, we're not hurting anyone, give us rights. It's, we are human, we do deserve these rights, give us equal rights like we deserve. And so it's a lot more assertive. And a year later they came back and they're like, we feel like we should honor Stonewall, this event that sparked the movement in some way. And for a long time, June 28th was a day of remembrance and a day of celebration and a day of all of this. And it just extended, and the celebrations expanded worldwide. There were celebrations in Canada, Australia, the UK. I mean, there's all over the world. They recognized what Stonewall was, and it was the moment that the gay community stood up finally and said, we're done taking this, we're fighting back. In 1999, President Clinton declared June to be back when it was shorter, when it was just Homosexual Awareness Month, Pride Month. And then in 2011, President Obama expanded it to include the entire alphabet army. And so now in June, we celebrate everybody who identifies as a little different. I know I went so far off course, and I took all of these notes and I jumped around and barely referenced them. And if I got things wrong, I am so sorry. That's just where my brain has been the past few days, and it's really hard to keep it focused when I'm talking. I go off on tangents. I don't know if that was educational or a complete cluster, but I hope it was, at the very least, that's the summary of all of that I just said. And there's a big old red spot on my neck because I've been doing this. Thanks for joining me. I did say this was a giveaway video, didn't I? We are giving away a lemon and a mango face mask. All you have to do to enter the giveaway is click on the link below. Wow, there's 3 face masks so far in this giveaway. 3 different face masks, I will add. All you have to do to enter the giveaway is click on the link below. It's going to ask some very basic information like what's your name, what's your username, do you follow me, what video are you watching. This is the Pride Month Week 2. What did I add to the giveaway? I added some face masks. Now there are a few rules, just a few, no big deal. You have to be 18 or up. If you're under 18, you need to have a parent or guardian watch, have a parent or guardian enter, and then if they win, you can interact with them and deal with them and decide between the two of you who's keeping what. You have to live in the United States. That is because I am poor and still trying to find a job, and I flat out can't afford shipping in another country. Sorry. Now, if you are subscribed to me and you enter and you're from another country and I pull your name, I will send you a message and I will tell you, hey, you won. I said America only, but you are from another country. Here's how much shipping is. You want to cover it? I will give you that option. But unless you're willing to pay shipping to another country, you need to live in America. I will cover shipping to America. And I will cover however much ships to America for anyone international as well. So like $8. But like I said, I'm not trying to be discriminative by not letting people from other countries enter. If you want to enter and you don't mind covering the rest of shipping above what it costs to ship to America, go for it. I literally can't afford it right now. Yeah. Hopefully next month. I'm actually doing really good door dashing and making like decent money door dashing, so there is a very good chance that things could change. I am trying. I'm hoping. We did really good Friday and Sunday. Like, I made half of my paycheck at the water department in 2 days door dashing, and it was only a couple of hours. It wasn't even that bad. So I have a full 6-day schedule this week. Hopefully we'll do some good and have some good days, and that could change things. And if it does, then you know what you know. The last rule: 1 entry per person per video where I add something, and that's per person, per household, however you would like to interpret that. But if I get even the hint that somebody is using multiple accounts to enter, I'm just going to ban you, because the odds of winning this are ridiculously good. I give away a box valued at approximately $100 every month. And I think the most entries I've had in any given month is 42. Usually it's less than that. And people have multiple entries. So that 38, like last month was 38. The person who won had at least 5 of those entries because they watched multiple videos. So don't try to cheat this. The odds are already so damn good. Just don't cheat. The final rule is if I have to make up a new rule because of you, you are permanently banned from this and all other giveaways. Stealing that rule from my D&D group that I used to play on online because I had to make up a new rule because of somebody. And I don't deal with that crap. I don't want to deal with people who try to cheat the system. So yeah, that's a rule. Anyways, I'm scattered as hell today. This is gonna be an interesting day. Part of it is just nerves because I have my first rehearsal tonight. Well, because I recorded this on Monday. So tonight I have my second rehearsal, but yesterday or today in my world is the music rehearsal, and I haven't sang in a choir 15 years. I think it's been 15 years, 16 maybe even. It's been a long time. The play I'm not as worried about. One, I don't have that big a part, but I have not sung in a choir in 16 years, and I miss it, and I'm excited, and I am terrified. But anyways, thank you for joining me. I believe I will see you tomorrow with an unboxing. I think I'm going to throw it up tomorrow because next Wednesday is my birthday, and I already have next Friday's video filmed, and I believe this Friday's video will be here tomorrow, so it will be filmed tomorrow, and I'm losing my thumbnail as we speak. So I'm just gonna throw up the Beauty Creations one before it gets too old, so it'll be up tomorrow. Bye guys.